Hello, and welcome to Makers.dev, episode number 59. Chris, I can't think of a single interesting thing to say about the number 59.
That by itself is fairly interesting.
I suppose so. It's not prime. There's no significant. It's not some sort of an innuendo of its code for something. It's just a number. It's almost 60. There's no, you don't get anything when you're 59 years old. I got nothing.
All right, I guess we should.
I don't know. All right, well, that's all I got. No, it's what? Cool. What did you get up to this last week?
This week was the first full week of my next semester for my master's. So that's
exciting.
Machine learning. I'm only taking one class this semester because I knew it was going to be hard, and I still want time to do work and other stuff. And it's hard. I knew it was going to be like math theory heavy, and it is for sure. I have the first homework assignment printed out. It is typeset in LaTeX. They also recommend that you typeset your answers in LaTeX. So they are serious. You can also write it out very neatly and upload that, but I cannot write very neatly, so that is a struggle. So we'll see what happens. The good news is, I look at every question and I'm like, how in the world am I going to do that? The good news is the TAs are really good. And so I went to office hours already, and he answered a whole bunch of questions that were, so yeah, I feel, when I first looked at the homework assignment, I felt discouraged, but now I feel much better that I will be able to get through the semester. Yeah, so that is how my week is going. We also have a sick kid, which is never fun. But yeah, otherwise, doing all right.
So much to dive into there. I would like to start with a short personal story about my own relationships with LaTeX. I, in college, found out about LaTeX and was like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. And not many people know it. And for my interlinear algebra class and for my other classes, everyone else was just handwriting it. And I was like, ooh, look at this. I can be nice and fancy. And I love the typography. There's something about it. It just makes math look beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of care and attention into little tiny details of kerning. And I don't even know what they do, but it looks really nice. And so as part of the scholarship program I was in, I got to interview incoming students who were coming in from high school who might be included in this scholarship program. And on one of their applications, I saw that they had been involved in this project in high school where they had done this project using Python and LaTeX. And I was like, perfect. This is the sort of detail that I look for to bring up this esoteric thing in their application to get them talking and excited about something. And it'll be a fun conversation that we can have. And it's this group interview, so I can me and him can have this connection, and we can be like, well, for everyone else, LaTeX is this programming thing. So the interview day comes, and we're chit-chatting, and a few other of the panelists ask some questions, and it gets to be my turn. And I'm like, so I saw you did a project in LaTeX. I'd love to talk about that. And he said, what? And I said, LaTeX, LaTeX, the formatting language for math things. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, there's this other thing. So you're into lacrosse. So tell me more about that. And afterwards, I looked at his application and checked, and he had written in his application that, he had in his thing that he did something in LaTeX. Yeah. And he couldn't recognize it afterwards. And I don't know if it was, it might have been just nerves, but that's my go-to story now whenever I'm talking to someone to be like, should I include this on my resume? My litmus test is, if in that situation, if it was brought up, you could say something interesting about it and you could have a conversation about it, then yes, include it. Otherwise, don't. I love LaTeX. I think LaTeX is super cool. What are your feelings about LaTeX and having to submit it?
So it is neat. In college, I typeset my resume in LaTeX, and I thought it looked, like you said, there's something just about the font and the way it renders that's just really nice. But it can be a pain in the butt. And so, even just the tool chain is, difficult. You got to download, a gigabyte of, who knows what, and then typeset it, and I don't know, it is just not what you see is what you get, word editor or something, which is fine, right? For mathematical things, right? It makes a lot of sense to have a sort of script-like language that you can define, equations and stuff with. So yeah, anyway, I will probably use it because I see it as being better than handwriting for what I'm going to do, but I think it will take longer than handwriting.
It's very verbose. It's not quite as fluid, but I don't know. There's something about it. The same sort of thing I get of code of like I wrote some HTML and now it's this beautiful thing, and yeah, it's not WYSIWYG, but like I know what the underlying fundamental thing is.
Yeah.
In WYSIWYG editors, sometimes I get caught up in like, if I'm trying to do a superscript, it's kind of weird. Like, what part of this is the superscript, and what if I want to do a superscript of a superscript, and I got to do all these kind of clever things of. I feel like I'm reaching for and just scratching for like, no, just tell me what the underlying data structure is and let me edit that, and I can. It's going to be a little bit more verbose, but then I can unambiguously be talking about what I'm trying to say. Weird connection. I cannot for the life of me remember this guy's name, but the guy who invented LaTeX also invented the Big O notation, and also came up with an algorithm for solving this game called Mastermind. Knuth. Donald Knuth. Yes, that's right. And I recently was reading his original paper on solving Mastermind because that's what I used to do my Wordle solver.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a small world in mathematics.
Yeah. You mentioned that last time. That's cool. I didn't know he came up with that. Yeah, interesting.
I think that's right. I'm pretty sure. I just pulled up the Wikipedia page for LaTeX and I didn't see his name immediately on there, but it's probably on there. Neat. I think having just saw my girlfriend Sarah go through this Harvard master's level psychology class, I think it's a wise decision to just do one class at a time. My only other exposure to that as an adult was just like chatting with you. I'm like, it doesn't seem so bad. And, maybe it's just because he has kids. But like, man, she was working for some of these days were like 12-hour days that she was just reading papers and writing essays, and it's intense stuff, especially if it's math focused. How are you feeling about the math part?
Yeah, so I knew I was going to have to review a lot of it because I haven't done a lot since college. So like need some linear algebra, some probability and statistics, a little calculus, but not that much, I think. But I realized doing this homework that I need to review basically everything about logs because I forget a lot of stuff about logs.
Oh, same.
Yeah. And so, among other things, right? So I was trying to figure out how I was going to learn all this stuff, and I could just I am watching the things, doing the reading, taking notes, but I was going to do this in the first semester, and I didn't, and I wish I had. I want to also teach the stuff that I'm learning as I'm learning it, because I know that I learn way better when I teach it.
Yep.
So I was going to ask you, how would you go about that? It's not really my normal stuff. So like if I just start randomly putting like, here's a bunch of stuff about logarithms, or here's this weird ML theorem, on my Twitter feed, that would be weird. Do I like make a new blog? Do I make a YouTube channel? Do I put it on my existing YouTube channel? Do I make a new Twitter account? Do I put it on my existing Twitter account?
What a fun question. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
What are your thoughts?
I have several things like this that I have been wanting to put together. Like Firebase is tricky to learn, and there's a whole bunch of different resources for it, and there's a lot of 100-hour tutorials on how to learn everything about Firebase. And I feel like what I need, what I want is like, there's a list of 20 things that I get wrong in Firebase that are like, just walk me through, I have the path of a document, show me how to get that document, because it's like 3 different steps, and you got to make the ref for it, and then you got to fetch the ref, and then you got to destructure it, and you got to remember that the ID is separate and not included in the document. So the thing that I'm making for myself for that problem is like a FAQ of here's the TLDR of how to learn Firebase. It's my own personal cheat sheet for how to do this. It's the resource that I wish existed when I'm trying to look at these problems.
Yeah.
For me, for Firebase, and I think something that would work pretty well for math is just it's one page on my blog, and every time I find myself Googling the same question for the 4th time, I'm like, okay, this is an FAQ on this thing. And then that forces me to go in and read the documentation and figure out okay, is this actually the best way, or is there some other thing that I can be doing to be solving this? Specifically with Firebase, that problem is conflated a little bit by I have drifted a little bit away from doing the blog post to making my own library, and then I have that library do things in the most logical way that I would expect.
Right.
But I think if I was reteaching myself linear algebra, I think the thing that I would do is make my own summarized version of just a page on my blog, christian.gen.co/linear algebra. That is, hey, you're familiar with basic math concepts, but you've forgotten the details of linear algebra, like how to do dot product and cross product. Here are your notes from yourself in the past of when you dug in and nailed this down, this is how you remembered how to keep them straight. This is the one simple animation to remember how to do the cross product. Okay, that's that concept. On to the next one. And it's just like the things that I consistently get wrong when doing those things. And then from there, if you want to, like you're very well versed in video, you could turn them into video. But I think for this medium, it would make more sense to do something in text first. And I don't think it needs to be its own blog, but like you could turn it into its own blog if it starts to become something bigger. But I would just start with a single blog post.
That makes sense, and I like that because what I was thinking is like, once I'm done with this class, I don't necessarily want to be doing a bunch of math stuff. Like it's not particularly interesting to me. I just need to learn it again. So I like an existing big long page on my site, not necessarily a blog post or anything, just a reference. I like that.
Title it Linear Algebra for Machine Learning. Linear Algebra cheat sheet for machine learning or something.
Yeah, I need that. And then a probability one, and then like there's all these things I know are going to be important on the. That's the other thing about this class is if I understood one of the posts in Slack correctly, the last semester's high on the second test was a 50%.
Oh,
and so the class is curved, but it's a kind of class where you're going to get a 50% and be happy about it on the test. Oh man! And so what did I get myself into? Yeah,
that's intense. That would feel very demoralizing. Okay, yeah. So the thing that I would do from your perspective, and the thing that I would love to read as your friend, is chrisashard.com/math for ML. And you start at that high level, and you're like, okay, we're going to break this up into different headings of linear algebra and statistics. And then if it becomes clear, like, oh, there's actually a lot of linear algebra that I need, okay, maybe that's its own separate page. And I just linked that from the main page. But it can be as simple as, as you're Googling for these and figuring out like, oh, yes, of course, this is what p-value is. You write your own little summary of what p-value is there. And if in whatever resource you found there's a more in-depth thing, you link to that. And if there's a nice animation you see on YouTube or something, you can clip out that piece of it and include that as a GIF. And then it's just all that one condensed thing. And then the next time you're like, a month from now, if you're like, shoot, what was p-value? You go to your own page and look it up. I had this magical moment doing this. I don't remember what context this was in, but it was some question that I only encounter like once every 4 years. And I Googled for the answer to this question, and my own blog post on the topic came up. And I was like, what? It was the eeriest thing. I didn't remember writing it. And I looked at it, and it perfectly answered my question. I was like, how did this happen? And it was only like 6 years ago or something. I can't even remember what this was. Like, this is going to happen again in another 4 years. But it's kind of fun. And then, I'm also benefiting all the other people who are thinking about problems in the same sort of way and asking the same sorts of questions. So yes, that's what I do. A page on your blog and have that be your condensed, consolidated math for ML.
Yeah, cool. I like that. Thanks.
Cool. You're welcome. What else did you get up to this last week?
That was it because
this
class is going to be a lot of work. I did the CAL competition as well, which is more like I set experiments to run on my computer and just let them run. So I'm not doing, like, I know basically what I want to learn from different experiments, and so I just sort of set them up and I run my card 24/7 for several days and get the answers out.
Cool.
So that is happening.
That graphics card.
That's right. And I priced out Paperspace like spot instance for some because if I had a bigger graphics card, I could have a bigger batch size. And so I looked at the prices of those, and they're very expensive. And so you can rent them for $2 an hour, which is also expensive, but less expensive than buying one. So I think I'm going to rent one to see if I actually use it. So probably going to do that as well. Yep.
Cool. That's a reasonable compromise. You have your own for most of the things you need and rent it out. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Neat. What is the new Kaggle competition? What do you?
This is the same one as last time. This is the essay one. So I'm trying to break up an essay into its parts, and like in order to help 6th through 12th graders, like give automatic feedback based on like if you need more claims in your essay, it's like you only have one claim. How about you add another one or whatever?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's that one.
Cool. Right now it's just like the exploratory. You're just taking all the essays and putting them in here and doing something with them. What does this look like at this stage?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, the whole pipeline. It's further along than that. So what I'm doing is there are these big language models called transformers, and they are pre-trained on depending. So this is like so GPT-2 and 3 are an example of a transformer, and there's other ones, and they're pre-trained on giant, corpses of like one is called the pile, and I think it's like 300 million pieces of text or something, so they're pre-trained on that. You can download those weights and then you fine tune it based on your thing. So basically, you run every word, or more specifically, every token. So a word might be multiple tokens. Every token through this transformer, and then it gets us like an embedding out. So 768 or 1024 dimensional, vector. And then you train it by saying this is part of a claim, or this is part of a position, or this is part of a lead. And then you train that for a long time. And then when you do inference, you run it through this giant model and then through your little piece, and then try to match up, so you can get chunks of leads together and call that a lead, chunks of positions and call that a position. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm training, doing something called cross-validation, which means you split up your data into multiple chunks and training on them and then leaving out that test set like we talked about. So that's what I'm doing is training these big models.
That's so cool. Let me see if I understand that. There exists these pre-trained mental models, neural networks.
Yep.
That are trained on human text. So it's this big old brain, and each neuron is a feature, not a word. What did you call it? A token.
Yeah, token.
Each neuron's a token. So like I have my neuron that lights up when I say re, and then there's another one that's mar, and then ka, and then bull, and then if I have all those neurons lighting up at the same time, it's the word remarkable. Is that close enough so far?
Sort of.
Okay. So that exists.
Yep.
That's its own brain, and you take these essays and you tokenize them, and with those tokens you can link them up to the brain. You can see which neurons light up. You have a mapping of like, okay, this essay corresponds to these neurons lighting up, and then you have with that mapping, you now have like a list of the neuron IDs or something, and now you can say this set of neuron IDs together is a claim, and then now we have a mapping of words to abstract concepts in an essay, and then you can go a level higher than that and say, okay, this essay has these elements like claims and summaries and a thesis. That makes it a good essay if it has these higher level components. So now, given a random essay, we'll go through that whole process again and tell me which higher level components are missing. Is that right?
We're actually not even doing the last part. So that's what they're going to do with whatever the thing is. The part we're doing is just identifying the different parts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're working on data that's already been labeled.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Man, how tedious must that have been to...
I know, yeah. They had, as far as I understand it, a bunch of volunteers and then some expert evaluators, and there's like 15,000 essays or something. And so,
wow.
Yeah, I guess almost double that because the test set is about that size too. So
what a crazy amount of work. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're just trying to replicate that human effort to be able to identify, given an essay, this is a claim, this is a hypothesis, this is something else.
Yep.
Cool. Neat. That's fun. What a cool way to break that problem up. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the thing that your graphics card is currently chewing on is taking the input essays and doing the tokenization and training, trying to learn, like, this was the human correct answer, try to figure out what's going on here, try to figure out the pattern.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yep. And it takes about an hour to chew through 15,000 essays, and I have to do that about 3 to 4 times per fold for 5 folds. And so it's about 24 hours of computation time every time I run a full experiment. So
Wowee.
Yeah. So you try to run little experiments that sort of point you in the right direction, and then you run a full one that takes a whole day. Yeah.
Define a fold?
Oh, so that's in cross validation. You chunk up your data into bins, and that's called the bins are folds. And so
Okay.
you can pick any number between 5 and 10 is common. If you have very little data, you can do as many as hold out just one example and have that be your test example, and then train on all the rest, and then do that for every single one. That's really extreme. But yeah, between 5 and chunking up your data into 5 or 10 bins called folds is cross-validation.
Okay, so if I have 10 bins, I can do this whole process once, saying bin number 1 is the test set that I'm going to hold aside, and then I do it again holding aside bin 2. Okay, so the idea is like if I'm actually learning how to do this problem and not just cheating or fitting to the data, by the 10th time I've done that with all the bins, I should have an actually useful model that okay.
And you just take the average. Usually, there's multiple ways to combine it at the end, but like take the average is common.
Cool. How fun, man! I mean, again, I'm astounded this is possible. We're living in such a cool world. What a complicated problem. I can't imagine also that like how complicated is it to figure out what a claim is, like based on tokens. That just seems it seems remarkable that would be able to be done by a computer, that is a higher level pattern that could be recognized.
Yeah,
but
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, the magic of transformers, lost the word, transformers, is that they look at that token in context, and so they can look up to, usually it's like 512 tokens on either side, or total, so 256 on either side. Before that, it was really, really hard to do that because it takes a lot of memory to do that. Transformers do this in a O of n squared, so like quadratic amount of memory instead of in factorial, I guess is what it would be otherwise.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the magic of transformers when they came out.
How many tokens on each side?
Like 512 usually, yeah.
512 tokens. Roughly how many words would that translate into?
So some words are just one token, like the, or even so common words like the 20,000 most common words or something are all just one token. But then if a word is like misspelled, for example, and there's a lot of misspellings in 6th to 12th grade essays, then it'll break it up just like you showed, like or said, like into chunks that it can establish are tokens.
Okay.
So like don't, for example, is commonly do and apostrophe t, so it's commonly 2 tokens.
Okay.
So between 1 and 3 tokens per word is pretty common. So
okay. So the I think you said 256 tokens on either side.
Yeah. So like 128 words is a rough approximation. And there's
on
also
each side.
Yeah, on each side, yeah. And there's also, so I'm using something called a long former, which has a trick that lets it look even further. But instead of just one step, it uses 2 steps basically. So what happens is there's some tokens that look at all the words. And so like for 2 of the tokens, usually like the start and the end or something like that, it looks at all the tokens. So what you could do is you can go from your token to the start token, and then from the start token to another token that's further away. And that way you can, in 2 steps, you get to look at everything, which another neat optimization.
That's wild. I'm struck by the thought of trying to think of how many tokens on either side of how many words on either side of a word when I read I'm keeping track of.
Yeah.
And I've never consciously thought about this, but I think it's something like, I don't know, maybe 10 words. And then for anything past that, I'm just like rapidly compressing it into its higher level meaning. And so as I'm reading, if I'm on any particular word, if you ask me like, what was the word 3 ago, I could kind of work backwards and tell you. And if you ask me what it was 10 ago, I would have a rough guess. And if you ask me what the words were in the paragraph, 2 paragraphs before what I'm reading, I might be able to tell you like the rough gist of what that said, but I would have no chance of being able to tell you like word for word what it said. How interesting. Okay, so this has the capability from this process to understand text better than me.
Well, so it's
at the level of word, at least it's remembering it more.
So it's just different. Like what you point out something that computers are bad at that humans are good at, which is rapidly compressing context into usable like memory.
Yeah.
Computers are not good at that at all, and that's why they have to look at so many words. Because they basically just brute force everything right now. Like that you brute force it by looking at all the words. It would be great if you could rapidly compress that context, like humans could for a lot of different things. But they can't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess that's the trade-off then. Like the better you are at compressing things, the less you need to remember it verbosely.
Yeah.
Like, a computer's really good at remembering exactly what the pixel color and brightness is of every single pixel, but it has a hard time remembering like the theme of that weekend. Like, what were the higher level lessons that I learned from the set of all of these pictures and all these photos together. Interesting. I guess that'll remain a human advantage for at least a little while longer. Probably at least until the end of the year. That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. So that was my week. Yeah. How about you?
I'd love to tell you about my week.
Yeah.
I had this last week, the day after we talked, my second meeting with my executive assistant, Rachel. And the first week was just like getting her onboarded, and I was pretty impressed with like she was able to pick up, okay, this is your backend for your thing, and this is your customer support software. Great, got it. And we walked through like a single case of, okay, this is a refund, and this is what you need to do with a refund. And I wasn't able to like walk her through it. She just saw a screencast of me doing it. So we got off the phone, and I was like, okay, we'll see how this week goes. I would like, this is a thing that I'm very convinced is a thing that is going to benefit me in my life, and I think it's going to take a long time to spin up so that it's actually saving time. So, we'll give this at least a month, and then go from there. And I'd like to mentally, like financially, write off that at least the next 6 months, like this is a 6-month experiment, and so I'm trying not to think about the money that I'm spending and trying to directly correlate that. So, okay, these are my thoughts going into meeting number 2. So meeting number 2, I'm thinking probably what's going to happen is she's going to be like, okay, I looked at more things, and she's contracted also for about an hour every weekday, and half of that, a half hour was spent just in our call. So I was thinking she was going to say like, well, I logged in, but I wasn't able to figure out what this thing was, and you have a lot of emails like this, and I'm not sure what to do, and we'd have to go through a few rounds of that before I actually got somewhere productive. And we got on the phone, and she was like, I've identified 6 different types of emails that you have. Let me go through each one. And I was like, whoa, cool. And she was like, this one, someone asked for a feature. What do I do with those? And I was like, I guess tell them thank you and say something non-committal about like, we'll let you know if this becomes on the roadmap, and then give me a weekly report of all the different features and who gave them to me, and with their email addresses so I can contact them later. And she was like, okay, good, next one. And I was like, oh my God, wait, no, that's all I have to do? That was the easiest program I've ever written. I just tell you, and now I never have to think about that again. And she was like, okay, refund, I saw how you did it, but is this response okay? And I was like, yes, of course. And she said, is there a way for customers to refund themselves or to cancel their own accounts? And I told her there wasn't, but there is now. And that was a mistake of mine. I think there was in the past, and I did something that disabled it, and now it exists again. She was like, okay, great. And she asked, this person said that they can't sign up for your thing because they can't pay for it. And like we talked about last week, I was like, yes, I know, it's very embarrassing. They between January 1st and January 12th or something, they couldn't do it. And she was like, oh, great. We go through that, for the 6 different types of emails that she's identified, working the entire 30 minutes, and I get off the phone and I'm just like, oh my God, I should have done this years ago. This is great. Is this what it's like to have other people working for you? And wow, that was so much more energizing, and like now I don't feel scared of having 10 times more customers, meaning 10 times more emails, because that just means I would hire Rachel to work for me for longer. And like, man, it's great. And I'm also seeing how, like, I think I'm paying her more money than makes sense, because this is like the very first time I've hired someone. This is, if anything else, just a lesson for me to figure out how to delegate. Paying Rachel $40 an hour. And the way I'm justifying that is she's making the SOCs that then I'm going to hire someone cheaper in the Philippines to just follow those SOCs. And if they have any problem, they bubble it up to Rachel. And then if Rachel doesn't know how to handle that, then she bubbles it up to me. But like, this is, I'm paying her to develop the process. And then I can constantly have her on like new things like that. But I am so happy. This is just, I got off the phone just glowing. I'm like, I'm a big old boss. I'm making money moves. I'm hiring people to do work that I don't want to do, and it feels great. And if anyone is on the fence about getting an executive assistant, it's you would have benefited from one years ago, probably. They're great. That's the first part of this, and then I have a follow-up question for you. But I just want to take a moment to say, wow, it's I love Rachel. She's great, and I'm really happy. I'm finally digging to the bottom of this Sisyphean task of customer support emails, and I've made the world and myself happier.
That is great. I think you knew that 6 months ago.
Sure did.
So I'm glad. I'm glad that it's working. Yeah, that's awesome. Good.
When I tell this story, I talk about how easy it was to work with Squared Away, and how I found out about them actually through a listener of this podcast. I was talking about like the type of person they wanted, how it was like, a stay-at-home mom that now has kids going to school, of that she has a bunch of free time and would like to spend a few flexible hours in the day doing some sort of work, and she's overqualified for the thing that she's doing. And someone reached out to us through this podcast and was like, hey, I think you're talking about Squared Away, which hires military wives who like are qualified people who just can't have a job in a physical space, so they need something remote. So the story I tell is like, I found out about that through the podcast, and then I got on the phone with them, and they were like, great, we can have someone for you next week. Just sign this contract. And then 6 months later, I emailed them back and said, hey, I dropped the ball on this. Could you send me another contract, please? And they said yes. And then the next week, I was on the phone with Rachel. Yeah, no, it's great. I don't know what I was dragging my feet about. I'm very happy. So here's the question for you: is she is just gnawing through these. And while I could, like, it wouldn't be an unproductive use of her time to just keep going through this backlog. There's something like 800 emails left of people who've emailed me at some point in the year. She could just stay on that, but that feels like kind of a waste, paying her $40 an hour. What other categories of tasks, putting your boss hat on, would you assign to Rachel if my goal is to increase the revenue for FileInbox?
It's a good question. First, I'll say I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to just let her keep chewing on them. She will surely identify more different types of things, further, refine your standard procedures. And the big thing, though, is when she gets that down to 0, you are going to feel so good. And so, like, if you just, if all you have to do is keep paying her and then that goes to 0, like that's not a bad outcome at all, I think.
Yeah.
But at some point, either she'll get through them, or we'll find someone less expensive to just follow what she's done. Things she could do are, I'm trying to. I only have one, so which is do what the "Won't You Be My Boss" segment told you to do, which is find and reach out to people in your different verticals.
Yep.
I know an assistant could do that, and. If she developed, procedures for that, then you could probably reach out to, multiples per week and just run that forever, right?
Yep.
So, like, that might be the next thing I would have her do. I don't know. I'm struggling to come up with more. I could, but I don't know. How you feel about that?
Feels good, yeah. And I agree with you that, like, if the only thing she did was just keep chewing on these customer support emails, like, that in itself would be productive. This is me trying to like hyper optimize. I agree that doing like cold outreach would be productive. I think the next thing I'd like is for her to start teeing up calls with my own customers for me. If I just say, here's my Calendly link, here's access to my calendar, your next job, bounce back and forth between the customer support emails and doing this. Just do whichever one. The problem I have as a boss, I think, is being a little too lenient. I think the way that I should phrase this is, I would like for you to fill these calendar spaces, and then once those are filled, go to customer support emails. But both of those are kind of asynchronous tasks, so do both at once.
I would say, especially like with what you just said, you do have to be careful once you're directing people, because if you're even a little bit, I wouldn't use the word lenient, but if you're a little bit vague in what your priorities are, then the wrong thing is going to get done. And it's not going to be her fault, it's going to be your fault. And so I would be specific about what your priorities are, but you can still be sort of flexible in how she does it. So you can say, my priority this week is this thing. I would also like you to complete some of this. I recommend doing this. But then if she does it a different way, at least you've outlined your priorities. So yeah, I would be very specific about your priorities. You can be flexible about the order or the amount of time or whatever. But yeah,
cool. Okay, I think my priority then is if there's an email from a customer that was sent within a week, that has priority. That should be dealt with before anything else. Yeah. And otherwise, my priority is to get my calendar booked for the next week of customer support email of customer interviews. And here's a template email to send them. Here's the verticals that I'm interested in right now: loan officers and accountants and sign printers and lawyers. And here's access to my whole customer database. Find people in this database to send this templated email to, and fill in the blanks for their details. And the template includes a link to my Calendly, and here's how you check if my calendar is currently full. If that's full for at least the next week, then just go back to customer support emails. Does that sound right?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Cool.
So I would make sure you record whatever sessions you do, because one of your next tasks, you could probably do this yourself right after the call or whatever, but try to figure out what you want out of these calls. I imagine it's going to be something like just information for you, but also probably any place where they show any kind of hesitancy or confusion, I would turn those into articles. So if she's a writer, then she can do that, or she could I was imagining her watching the videos and then summarizing what you need to write up. But maybe she could write it too, or maybe she could find someone to write it for you. So yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought. I don't have a system for what comes after those videos. They talk about that in Deploy Empathy. I think I'm just going to model this entire pipeline on Deploy Empathy. Okay, that feels good. I have another call with her tomorrow, and we'll bring this up. I think I'll also try to get a gauge on how is the customer support going, or are you bored with that? I haven't actually checked the SOPs that she's writing, so I want to double check that that's happening. But on the whole, my gosh, I'm so happy. I put zero effort into vetting this person. I had one call with Squared Away where they were like, "What are the sorts of things you want to do?" And I linked up my bank account, and now this just happens. I have this person who I can tell to do random things, and they'll do it. On the call, also, she was saying that I think I mentioned this last week, she has a response time of an hour from in working hours in Central Time, where if I just send her a random text and I'm like, "Hey, order me a cake," she'll do it within an hour. I think that's pretty cool. This feels like a really good baby's first employee. It feels good. There are a lot of the pitfalls of the person I hired isn't a reputable person, and I have to figure out how to do W-2s, and I have to really crack the whip of making sure that they're staying on task. Those feel like they've all kind of been outsourced to this agency, so it's good. It's good practice. Cool. That's all about Rachel. Generally on FileInbox, now that I've been freed, I feel like I have two shackles holding me down of that I don't want to grow FileInbox. The first is customer support emails. Boom, Rachel's got that for me. That I feel freed from that now. Second is infrastructure, because when I get an email at 2 a.m. that says, "Hey, FileInbox is down," you need to go in and figure out what servers to restart and what thing is randomly broken. I need to relearn how Rails works. That feels really bad. And then when I'm mentally simulating, what if 10 times more people were using FileInbox? I have this dread wash over me of, oh man, I would need this way more complicated infrastructure. I've justified this so many times. Moving to serverless, the way to go.
Yep.
So that's what I'm just dead set on. As other projects and other ideas keep creeping in, I just push them away. I'm like, no, serverless stuff. So the project for that this week was figuring out Stripe invoicing within Firebase. And that is going really well. I am at the point of a project. Are you familiar with hill charts? 37 Signals talks about this.
Yeah, in Shape Up they talked about that, right?
Yeah. For anyone listening, it's this idea that project progress isn't measured linearly. It's measured as a hill because going up the hill, there's all this complexity and you're learning new things about the project. And but then once you're at the top of the hill, like not very much progress has been made, but you've figured out most of the complexities, and then from there it's just like putting Legos together. It's much simpler. I feel like I'm at the top of that hill right now. Of like I know what all the pieces are. It's just about which path down this hill am I going to take down. And then I have a roadmap of like the other major categories of the ways to push this forward. So here's my question for you. There are two ways that I can integrate Stripe. I can use a Firebase extension written by Stripe that's just plug and play. I just hit buttons and it's integrated. And the promise behind that is it's syncing my Firebase database in Stripe. So I kind of have my own little private way to query everything about Stripe. And they handle all the webhooks, and it's the library is maintained by Stripe. There's a standard way of generating links and things. I think the potential downside of that would be it's not as configurable, but I haven't quite gotten in the weeds enough yet to know when that's important. I'm also a little bit spooked because I went on the GitHub repository. All this is open source. There's a public GitHub repo for this extension, and there's a whole bunch of issues, and it looks like Stripe has been ignoring that. So I'm feeling a little uneasy there. And some of those are like, hey, there's this edge case where if someone tries to sign up and then exits the page and then goes back, it has a canceled invoice in their account, and then it has the new invoice that's been paid, but then I'm just looking at the most recent one, so it's not like things like that it's making me a little uneasy that they're not getting a response. So that's thing number one. Option number two is I can re-implement just the parts of that I need. I can effectively build my own Stripe extension for Firebase. And that's reasonably straightforward. There's a course on it on the site called Fireship that walks you through these are exactly what the things you need to implement are. This is how you implement the webhooks, and these are the types of webhooks that you need to respond to. And then I have much more flexibility in how I'm responding to those things. The downside of that is 7 years down the line, when Stripe has updated their invoice or their API, and I need to go through and update something, I'm going to be in the same position I was in a couple weeks ago of having to do all this lower level code versus the promise of this extension is that they'll be updating it for me. How would you be thinking about which way to go?
Yeah. Are you using Stripe? Are you going to use Stripe Checkout, or is this?
Of course. Yeah, both of them use Stripe Checkout. Yeah.
Normally, I would say do whatever gets you going faster, which would be the library. But billing is one of the cases. There are very few. Billing, security, there's a few cases where it's like if you get it wrong, then it goes really wrong. And Stripe Checkout is easy enough that I think you could probably build the whole thing in like a day. Mm-hmm. And if you had to rebuild it in 7 years, it'd probably take like a day. So I don't know. I don't want to say do it both ways, but like
the John Carmack answer.
Yeah. I would go spend an hour on each way, and I think you'll see the pitfalls pretty quickly. Because like I don't know how you do billing for FileInbox, but if one of the ways that you want to do billing is not supported on either of the ways, then that's your answer. Use the other way. If you get going in 1 hour with one of the ways, then just go with that probably. Yeah, I think if you spend an hour on each one, then you'll know the answer. My answer would probably be do it. You said Stripe manages the GitHub repo, which is good. But my default answer would be to do it myself, probably for billing, because Stripe Checkout already takes so much of the burden that you could probably knock it out in not much trouble. Yeah.
It is already so much easier. A small aside, I was struck by the first time I had to figure out billing and using Stripe. It's probably, 3 weeks of work, and learning this entirely new way to do it using Stripe Checkout. It was like a day and a half.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I have a functional thing right now. I just need to hook up some things with the UI. Amazing! It's so much easier. That everything just gets so much better. Stripe Checkout especially is such a fantastic product. I'm really happy with the state of technology. Okay, I'm basically an hour into this Stripe Checkout extension route, and it's looking like that's going to do everything I needed to do. And I have this other way to do it in my back pocket. So I think what you're recommending is like keep going forward in the extension path, and if I hit a wall, switch. Yeah. And try at least an hour in this other thing. And if I run into a problem that's even harder, further upstream than I did in extension, then okay, well now I have more information. Now I can push forward with the problem on the extension. Does that sound right?
Yeah. If you're already an hour in and it's working, or it's you see a path to it working, then I'll just keep going with that. And I would not worry about 7 years down the line because, like you said, it went from 3 weeks down to about a day and a half.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in 7 years, it's like, hey AI, put billing into my application. So I wouldn't worry about
Actually,
that.
Yeah, probably. That's probably what it's going to be. How funny. Okay, cool. That feels good. Neat. I have 2 more things to talk about that are much more fun. The first is quick. The Wordle solver that I made is getting so many interactions on Twitter. I keep having people mention me, and they're like, the fantastic WordleSolver.com by @cjenko. It makes me feel really good. It's cool. There's so many tweets that are like asking people what their favorite first word is, and I have my tweet that's like, well, algorithmically, like, this is the first word, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. And people like, I wish my brain worked this way, and I don't know, it makes me feel good. It's I made a thing, and people like it. That's it.
Cool.
That's all I have to say about that.
That's cool. Did you see on Hacker News someone said solving Wordle in 3.5 moves 94% of the time or something?
No,
I will send you that. Yeah,
I need to look that up. Cool. Yeah, 3.5 I think is, I don't know if you could do better than that. They probably are beating me then. I might steal whatever algorithm they're using. Small aside, I still want to be playing the game, but I would like to have some sort of like a very simplified Wordle solver that can just go in my meat brain of like, just remember these 3 words, and if you always guess these 3 words, there's only 2 possible words it could be that are left. So just think of a word that would fit this criteria.
Right.
That might be my next project for it. Last thing that I'm very excited about that we have talked about a little bit already. I don't know what came over me. I think it might have something to do with being friends with you, being friends with Brian Richards, who's a like professional Lego collector, and watching the Harry Potter reunion special. But I have gotten so into Harry Potter Lego.
Yes.
I had like 1 or 2 sets when I was really young. I had the troll set and just played with it for hours and thought it was really cool. And now I'm an adult with money and free time.
Yep.
And I asked you about the Hogwarts Castle set, this $400 Lego set. It's a mini set of the entire Hogwarts Castle. And I was like, man, what do you think about this? And you sent me a picture of it that you have it. Like,
yep.
I think you said you gave it as a Christmas present to your wife. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
So cool. Oh, what a couple. That makes me so happy. And you got the lighting kit in it. There's like extra lighting kits you can put in it. Amazing. So I bought this smaller Hogsmeade set and put it together with my girlfriend, and we were both like, this is great, more of this. So I ordered the Privet Drive set on Amazon, and then I went into the Lego store because I was looking for the Hogwarts set, and they had the Diagon Alley set.
Yes.
Also $400.
Yes.
This box is just massive. It's heavy, and I was like, I gotta do it because it's Lego holds its value reasonably well. So like when I get tired of it, like, okay, I can sell it. Like, I'm not just burning this money, and some of it, funny enough, like appreciates in a way that Beanie Babies did not. Yeah. So I found myself consumed and inspired with this idea of a interactive moving diorama of all of the different sets. Let me paint you a picture of what I'm thinking.
All right.
You walk into our house and you see this entertainment center with a TV in the back. And it's got some Harry Potter themed things about it. It's got like the Deathly Hallows symbol on it. It's got like maybe a little Harry Potter Lego figurine. And you go over to it, and you go up, and you're looking at the TV, and then it's a flat top that's sort of wooden, but it has kind of grooves in it. And you see the Harry Potter thing, and you're like, Harry Potter. Are you into Harry Potter Lego? And I come up behind you, and I'm like, oh, am I into Harry Potter Lego? And I take a wand out of the front of the cabinet, and I do a little swish and flick, and all of a sudden the lights in the living room dim, and some smoke starts coming out of the case, and then a little trap door in the middle of the table opens up, and out of it rises the Privet Drive set. and then the TV changes to like the back of, it's like a neighborhood Privet Drive sort of thing, and the Harry Potter music starts playing, and it walks you through the plot of the first and second films. It starts with Privet Drive, and the scene with Hagrid and Dumbledore and everything else, and the set like swivels around so you can see the little baby Harry Potter, and when it swivels around, it's Harry Potter when he's older, the cupboard under the stairs, and it goes through like all the major story beats up to this moment that's just burned in my brain of like as they're going up to the castle on the boats, it's this big sweeping music, and I'll have a sound bar built into this, so it's just like overpowering with the sound, and as the huge Hogwarts castle set just rises out of the back of this entertainment set, and that's what I've been thinking about a lot over this last weekend, is like how I can make this happen. I've been looking at like linear actuators and different sorts of lifts and things of how I can get this done. But for right now, I would just like your hot take on how ridiculous is this?
Oh, man.
What are your thoughts?
So, for those of you who don't know, my wife is a big Harry Potter fan. We have lots of the Harry Potter Legos. That is well beyond whatever we have going on. That is awesome. If you are like me, what will happen is you will buy all these linear actuators, and you will buy all these things, and then you will put them in a box, and you will not see them for 2 years. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I think that's awesome. I don't think it will happen unless you really, really want it to. But I think that's awesome. What we did, which we have a lot of the Harry Potter Legos. We keep them as mostly a Christmas thing, so we put them in bins and bring them out at Christmas, and our kids play with them, and that's nice. And then we only have them cluttering our house for a few months out of the year, and that is a thing we do. We also have the giant castle set up in our bedroom. That is our we have a little bookshelf thing, and the castle's on top of that, and it's on I put it on a Lazy Susan, I modified a Lazy Susan so it spins around. And so that's what we did with ours, but it's not automatic, and it does not have a wand. And it does not. That's awesome if you do it. I will come over just to see that. But my guess is you will get into it a little bit and realize it's a lot of work.
Most certainly, yeah. I'm into building 2 right now of with Sarah the Diagon Alley, and man, it's a lot. There's a lot of but I love it.
Yeah.
We watched the first movie while we were putting them together. It's so much fun. I love your idea of only bringing this out for Christmas. That was the gateway idea that got me into justifying buying a stupid amount of these sets. I've got spreadsheets now of like every Lego set that's ever been made. And I'm putting together these storyboards of like these are the sets for these scenes. And do we really need Quidditch? Can we just cut Quidditch from the entire thing?
The thing they really get you with is some of the characters you can only find in some of the sets.
Yeah.
So if you want all the characters, now we have like 30 Rons and 30 Harrys and stuff.
Yeah,
maybe not that many, but yeah, if you want McGonagall and her special robes or something, you got to buy one specific set. Yeah.
Yep. And they have the chocolate frog cards that are the special ones. And man, if at the end of this I don't have all of them, I'm gonna buy the 2 I still need. And that they have golden pieces. I have a golden Ron now. I don't know what to do with that.
We have a golden Dumbledore too. Yeah.
What's the deal with the golden pieces?
It's just another thing.
They just made them golden? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll probably need all those too. Cool. Yeah, no, I think most certainly what's going to happen is, I'm going to finish this set. I'm going to finish one more set and then be like, I'm bored with this. And what usually tends to happen, I think with both of us with those sorts of projects, that was like, okay, we'll put it down for a little while, and then the next time I have a spark of inspiration, I'll chase that, and look at this, I already have all half the things I need for this project, so I can push it forward much easier. In this moment, though, I'm feeling like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm gonna. What else would I do with my time other than figure out how to do these screw lifts? I think is what it's called. That's going to make the most sense to lift this up. Yeah. You take like 2 threaded rods and you sink them together with a belt, and then your actual table has a screwed insert in it, and then if you just rotate the rods with the belt, then the platform rises and falls. That part feels pretty easy. I asked my magician friend if he had any tips on that, and if he knew of like a good design for the trapdoors, and he recommended like a garage door type thing, so it rolls up and makes space to go back up. But
in order to make all this, you're also going to have to buy a table saw and a chop saw and all the woodworking tools. Yeah.
I actually have a lot of those from
right.
when I was going to build a tiny house and then didn't. But I still might. It's all the
right.
stuff is there for
Yeah, all
ready
right.
for me to be able to do it.
You won't be able to. You won't be able to fit your Harry Potter castle in your tiny house, so you got to pick one.
Oh man. Well,
Put a second tiny house next to your tiny house with all of your Harry
there we
Potter
go.
Legos in
There
it.
we go.
Yeah,
My Harry Potter Lego Museum.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if it would get you to fly down to Dallas, that's good motivation to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
this done. Cool. I think that's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.